Hi, and welcome to another Watch Geek video. Today, we'll be taking a look at a watch that I can say has become an icon in the watch world, even though it's what is considered an entry-level, affordable watch, the Orient Mako. Orient Mako was always an option when people are on the hunt for an affordable automatic diver's watch, and it would always be the third contender in the battle between the Seiko SKX007 and Citizen NY0040. I already covered the NY0040, and to my surprise, I found it more attractive and more refined than the adored SKX. So let's see how Orient will do, and whether it can surprise me as well. When it comes to the specs, Orient is the smallest on paper, even though to me it wears slightly bigger than the Citizen. It has a diameter of 41mm and a lug-to-lug of 47. In my opinion, the perfect dimensions for a diver's watch, meaning it will look great on almost any wrist. The thickness is 12.5mm, but thanks to the way the bezel is done, with this slope, it wears much thinner than both the SKX and the Citizen, making this the dressiest of the three. The sloping bezel also means the watch slides under your sleeves easier than the other two. The case is the most classical of the three as well, with no experimentation or a defining feature that both the SKX and the Citizen have. Even the crown, that is signed by the way, is placed at the traditional 3 o'clock, making this watch resemble the Rolex Submariner the most, at least when it comes to the case. The bezel is a 120-click unidirectional bezel, so an upgrade from the 60-click bezel of the first generation. It comes with an aluminum insert and a lumed pip at 12 o'clock. The insert has these notches that make it hard to mod with available SKX inserts, even though it shares the same dimensions with it. But if you're into modding, knowing you can fit an SKX bezel will make you happy. Then we move to the dial, and this is the one place where Mako tries to be completely different than everybody else, and in my opinion, it works. The stick markers combined with the numerals make the dial look original, while they're still legible and balanced. This is the one watch you can say is not yet another sub-clone when it comes to the dial. The hands are original as well, and work great with the dial. Just like on the Citizen, both markers and hands have the matching silver outline, something I always disliked on the SKX, where the hands are silver framed while the markers are outlined in white. The watch has an applied Orient logo and silver framing around the day and date window, confirming the dressy side of this watch. There are many dial variants, but this Pepsi variant with the rich blue sunburst dial is definitely the best looking to me. For those who would prefer a more traditional diver's dial, there is a Ray version, which is basically the same watch but with traditional round markers. I personally like these better as they're unique to Orient. The lume is excellent, and I think it's the same lume used on Seiko divers, as it gets lit up by the slightest exposure to light and glows brightly and for a long time. If you look closely at the lume shot, you will notice you can't see the seconds hand, and that reveals us the one shortcoming this watch has compared to the other two. Despite the same 200-meter water resistance, this is not an ISO certified diver's watch, which is why the seconds hand doesn't have to be loomed. So if ISO certification is something your diver's watch must have, this is not for you. However, if you can get past that, the Orient might even be better, at least in this second generation, with its upgraded movement that now features both hacking and hand winding, something both Seiko and Citizen lack, with the Citizen having hand winding only. And more importantly, the day setting has been moved to the crown instead of that button at 2 o'clock that the first generation used. I was never a fan of that, as it made day changes fast, which is unnecessary as the day cycle never changes once you set it up. If they used it to change the date, which is something you have to correct every other month, I might have tolerated it. But even like that, I still prefer this version, as removing the button not only makes for a more elegant looking case, but also eliminates one possible water entry point. The movement is Orient's in-house caliber F6922, which beats at 21,600 bph, comes with about 40 hours of power reserve, and features quick set day and date function with the already mentioned hacking and hand winding. The bracelet is nothing to write home about. It is a solid link oyster bracelet with hollow end links and a stamped clasp. But it does seem of good quality, and the look complements and balances the watch nicely at 22mm in width. I will always have a soft spot for Orient watches, as it was my gateway into mechanical watches, just as I'm sure it was for many others. This second generation of Mako proves that Orient is listening to its customers, as many people were asking for these changes, and Orient responded. In the US, you can even get it with sapphire, again an answer to pleas from their US customers. And that is something I like about Orient. You have a feeling they're not too big to ignore their customers, unlike some other brands. And although they tend to make a lot of watches with questionable design choices, this watch shows they can sometimes make a truly timeless and beautiful timepiece that is just as good, and in some things, even better than the kings from Seiko and Citizen. If Orient came with ISO certification, it would be a clear winner, as I find it even more refined than the Citizen, that I already said is more refined compared to the SKX. Well, this completes this week's review, so thank you for watching. I hope you liked it and found it useful. If you did, please like and subscribe by pressing this button right here, and until the next video, bye.